Today I'm talking about lower back pain and muscle spasms and whether you should continue training with lower back pain. This is something that so many people suffer with, so many people deal with, something that I've dealt with a lot myself. And I'm answering a really common question, which is, people that are making progress with their workouts, they're making progress with their training. A lot of people start training with us because they have lower back pain and because they want to fix it. And then just as they think things are going really good, the lower back pain rears its ugly head again. And they start to question whether they should be training or whether they should be resting. And so I'm going to talk about that today. I'm going to talk about my experiences as well. I've suffered really bad lower back pain in the past. I was an infantry soldier in the Australian Army for 4 years, and on a deployment overseas, I had a really bad fall and fractured my spine. I had a bilateral pars fracture in L4, and then over the years that developed into spondylolisthesis and spondylosis in L4 and L5. And when I got out of the army when I was 34 years old, I was in such bad pain that I was having to take painkillers daily just to get through my days. And now at age 46, I turned 47 this year, I am completely pain-free and I haven't had any surgery or anything like that. So I'm going to share with you guys what I've done to get there, what you can do, and what's going on when you are having these muscle spasms, like what's really happening in your body and what is the best course of action. So we're going to talk about nutrition, we're going to talk about rest versus working out, we're going to talk about what kinds of workouts you want to be doing, what kinds of exercises you want to be doing, what the short-term strategy is and what the long-term strategy is, and also where trigger point release and foam rolling come into play, where chiropractic and physiotherapy come into play as well. So sit down, grab yourself a cuppa and join me for this talk, because if you're somebody that's suffering with lower back pain, this can really change your life. This can really turn things around for you and give you a new lease on life where you're going to feel more energized, more confident with your gym work, and you will start to see consistent long-term results. And before we get started, of course, the boring stuff. Right now, actually for another 24 hours, we're running a special for our UMS online coaching. So for anybody that wants to really, take control of their health and fitness this year, you can join me. Work with me personally with online coaching at a 38% discount. So if you want to go and grab that offer, it's available for the next 24 hours. And you just need to go to unitygym.com/UMS-discount. And you can get signed up there. You'll complete a pre-exercise questionnaire. When you join, you'll get access to our app, and then I will review your questionnaire and create a customized program that is specific to your goals, that's going to get you to where you want, and then provide coaching for you as much as you need for your process to get you, strong, healthy, fit, pain-free, all that good stuff. And if you are not ready to do that, but you do want to still take 2025, grab onto it, get your goals set and get them achieved, you can go and grab our Peak Potential Planner. It's free. If you go to unitygym.com/PPP, that's an incredible resource. My brother and I have worked with some of the best mentors in the world. We've paid over $100,000 in our mentorship over the years. And we've learned systems for setting goals and achieving goals, not just for health and fitness, family goals, relationship goals, financial goals, and there is some really good systems that you can use to not just be sort of randomly going through life and hoping that you'll get what you want, but to really become deliberate and create a very clear direction with what you want to achieve and achieve it. So head on over to unitygym.com/PPP and you can get that resource for free. It's an incredible course that we've put together with video lessons and a downloadable book where you can, set and write your goals and work towards them. All right, so this live stream, this podcast is coming from a really common question that I'm asked, which is, people are making great progress with their training and then they go, oh man, I've got this lower back spasm and it's really hurting me. What should I do? Should I keep working out? So the first thing that I'll address is, should you keep working out or should you stop working out? You should absolutely keep working out when you have lower back pain or a muscle spasm. Now, of course, this is separate from anybody that has a severe issue. If you have a severe issue that you need to go and see a specialist for, then by all means, like if you're in so much pain or if you know that you've got a debilitating issue, you want to get it diagnosed, you want to make sure you know what you're dealing with. So let's put that to the side. But if you're just talking about pain in your lower back, if you know what you're dealing with, if you've got common issues like herniated discs or bulging discs, or like I've got spondylolisthesis or spondylosis or pars fractures, things like that, then this is absolutely suited for you. And rest is not best. Rest will not fix your lower back pain. What I've learned is that we need to work on, we're going to talk about diet and chronic inflammation, so we'll talk about that. But lower back pain comes from, most commonly, the body just not being strong enough and flexible enough to do the things that you want to be able to do. And what it does is, you know, when you have these imbalances in your body, when the muscles in your hips and your lower back and your legs, when they're not working efficiently, when your posture isn't sitting well, like for me, a lot of it was related to a really severe anterior pelvic tilt that I have because of the spondylolisthesis, because spondylolisthesis is where, you know, one of your vertebrae is posteriorly tilted, so it creates this sway in your back. Then, you know, you need to get strong so that your body can hold you up without excessive load on areas that shouldn't be having excessive load. And so what happens is when your glutes are weak, when your hamstrings are weak, when your core muscles are weak, when your knee stabilizers are weak, you put a lot more pressure on your lower back, on your lumbar extensors than what is intended for them to handle. And that's where you start getting muscle spasms. That's where they can start from. So we really want to be making sure that we are working towards being stronger. And you've got to understand that working out versus not working out, you're either getting stronger and you're either moving slowly towards the life that you want to be pain-free and to be able to do the things that you want, or you're getting weaker and you're moving further away from that life. You've got to be really clear on that distinction. If you're not working out, if you're not doing resistance training, your body is getting weaker. And anything is better than nothing, okay? Of course that's true. So if you're somebody that's saying, but you know, I go running or I go cycling or I go swimming or I do yoga or I do whatever it is that you do, of course that's better than doing nothing. I'm not saying that. But we live in an aging population. You know, the average life expectancy for people is getting older, and the further you are on the on the older side of 35, the less muscle mass you have. Your body is naturally losing muscle mass every year, and loss of muscle mass is one of the key factors in loss of quality of life. When you lose muscle mass over time, your hormones become irregulated. It can you literally become weaker. So you can't climb up and down stairs as well. You can't pick up your kids and play with them as easily. You can't carry the shopping. You know, you start developing things like golfer's elbow and stuff just from going to work. And if you're a tradie, or if you do physical work, or even if you're just somebody that has to carry heavy shopping bags here and there, you can get things like golfer's elbow. You start getting things like slap tears and stuff just from playing sports on the weekends. And you know, you're probably thinking how unfair that is, because you're an active person. You're out there, you're playing pickleball, you're playing basketball, you're being active. But unfortunately, none of that stuff really works to maintain and build muscle mass. And that's what's really important here. One of the biggest things that we all need to get our head around is that being active isn't enough. We need to be working to build and maintain muscle mass as we age. And you can do that in as little as, you can do it in as little as 1 session a week. But I would really like to motivate all of you to dedicate at least 2 sessions a week where you do strength training, dedicated strength training. Everybody thinks that flexibility is the real reason why you're suffering pain in your body, and it actually rarely is. Flexibility is a part of it, and if you've been following my channel and my content for a while, you know that I'm really big on combining strength and flexibility into the same workouts. And I do that because flexibility and strength really are two sides to the coin. One without the other, you do run into problems. And so, you know, we've worked out a really creative way to combine strength and flexibility into the same workout, so that if you've only got 40 or 60 minutes to work out, you can still get strong and flexible in those workouts. But when it comes to lower back pain, It is much more to do with the lack of strength and also gut health, which is what I'm going to talk about here. So the first, elephant in the room that I want to address is that if you're having muscle spasms in your back and you're thinking, should I work out or should I not work out? You should absolutely keep working out. The only time you should not work out is if you can't get to the gym. Like if you're in that much pain that you can't actually walk to the gym because it causes you so much pain, then we need to address that. But if you can get to the gym, and even though you're experiencing aches and pains, then you absolutely should. Because a muscle spasm is really just something that's occurring within the nervous system. We feel it in the muscle and we go, oh my God, this muscle is spasming, what should I do? But what's going on is you whatever it is that you were doing when you had that muscle spasm, there's a lot of things that can cause muscle spasms. But the sort of umbrella reasons why we have muscle spasms is because whatever it is that you were doing at the time that the muscle spasm occurred, you weren't strong enough to do that. So, we call this load management. Load is the combination of intensity and volume. So intensity is how heavy you are lifting and volume is how much of it you are doing. So it could be you could have just lifted a box at home that was too heavy for you in that state. And you might think, well, that's ridiculous. Like I can deadlift 200 pounds or whatever it is. Like I've had muscle spasms in my lower back from lifting my son out of the car. And this was back when he was like, 4 or 5 years old, and he must have weighed 15 or 16 kilograms. So that's like 30, 35 pounds. And I can deadlift like double my own body weight. And I picked him up out of the car and rotated, and I had the most intense muscle spasm. This is the last time I had a really bad one in my back. And we were just getting into the car to come back from a vacation at Yanni and my mother's house, which is 500 kilometers away, so about 350 miles. And we, I had to do this long drive, and my back spasmed so bad that I had to drop to the ground, and I was like laying there rolling in pain. I had to have anti-inflammatories, and I just had to sit in the car to get home, but I was in all sorts. But as soon as I got home, the first thing that I did was a workout. And so anyway, if we go back to load management, what I want to talk to you about is like it's about that in that moment, I wasn't strong enough to do what I did. And all that is that I hadn't worked out for a week. And the times that I get the worst spasms, like when I'm most prone to muscle spasms, is when I haven't worked out for a week because I haven't been moving my body. Everything sort of stiffens up. And I hadn't warmed up at all, of course. Hadn't done any movement. I hadn't even done my like daily spine movement. Once or twice a year, I just really sort of let my hair down and I don't do much working out. I don't do this really anymore. I almost always bring my foam roller and at least do my daily mobility. And, in that moment, I wasn't strong enough to pick my son up and rotate the way that I did. And if I had have done a simple warm-up, if I had have just taken 5 minutes and done some spine mobility and, done some foam rolling and warmed my body up, then I would have been absolutely fine. So the point is that like whatever it was that you were doing in that moment, you weren't strong enough for it. Now that might be that you were at the gym and you had warmed up and you'd done everything the way that you're meant to, but you weren't actually strong enough to be deadlifting the weight that you were deadlifting when you had that muscle spasm, or you weren't strong enough to squat the amount that you were squatting, or whatever it was. Or it's very often what happens is that you were doing it with bad technique. So bad technique is a big one that we work on addressing with people. So then what happens is that the nervous system goes, oh, that was too much. I'm going to tighten these muscles up, create this pain response so that you don't do more of that, so that you feel that was bad. And so that's what a muscle spasm is. The muscle spasm is the nervous system tightening up the muscles, creating inflammation in the area. It creates this inflammation response where the muscles swell up and you start getting pressure on nerves. And so you have this experience where you feel like there's no pain at all, but then you move like this and you go, oh, and there's this sharp pain. And you can actually train that out of you. You can actually go and do the right workout, do the right movement, and show the body that this isn't actually dangerous and you can let go of this muscle spasm. And all of the stuff that I share with you, I say this over and over again, but I really want to make sure that you guys understand where I get this information from. It all comes from working directly with exceptional sports physical therapists and chiropractors, extensively for a decade-long period, having, uncapped access to these guys to be able to chat to them, ask them questions, really understand what's going on with these issues. And so Yanni and I, we transitioned from what everybody does when you experience this muscle spasm, where you feel this, this pain in your body, and you're feeling this like this, and you think, well, I better stop working out. I better not work out. We've transitioned from that to, I'm actually going to go and do a workout now, and I'm going to train this spasm out of my body. And so what do I mean by that? It's you go to the gym and you do something that you can do that doesn't trigger the muscle spasm. So that would normally include an extended warm-up with foam rolling. I'll talk about that in a minute. And then basically doing a reduced amount of volume and a reduced amount of intensity in your regular workout. So if you're used to squatting, I'll choose an arbitrary number. If you're used to squatting 100 pounds for 5 sets, you might squat 40 or 50 pounds, like an unloaded barbell, for 2 or 3 sets with half the amount of reps. But that is still going to be better than doing nothing, because what will happen is you'll go through that workout. If you do it properly, the spasm not only won't get worse, but it'll actually get a little bit better. And that empowers you to go back the next day and do a tiny bit more and a tiny bit more. And then over several workouts, usually in my experience, over about the space of about a week, you get back to 100% again. So I'm kind of going around in circles. I'm going to go back a little bit to describing what I mean by, a muscle spasm is this idea of mismanaging load and doing too much, in the moment. So load is, when you think about load, I want you to think about, we talked about intensity being one part of load, so that's how heavy you are lifting, but the other part of load is volume, and volume is how much you are lifting. So volume in the gym is how many sets you do in a workout and how many reps you do in a set. So that combination of that is the volume that you do, and it's also, that relates to all sets and all reps on the one muscle group. But volume also relates to your daily life. So you add volume to something like your lower back just by going through life if you're somebody that has a physical life. So every time you pick your kids up in and out of the car, every time you play with them, you're adding load to your lower back because you're using those muscles. And for some people that have really weak lower back muscles, really weak core, they're really compromised. But like if you think about load management as being a cup. So here's your cup, and this is how much load you can handle. And every time you do something, you're pouring a bit of load in the cup. So when you do the grocery shopping and you carry the groceries home, there's a little bit of load that goes in the cup. When you pick up your kids and play with your kids, there's a little bit more load that goes in the cup. And you might have such a small cup that when you go to the gym, the cup is already full. And then you go and do a workout, and just the tiniest little workout, something that seems insignificant, bang, triggers the muscle spasm. And then you've had too much and you're in pain and you're swearing and you're cursing and you're blaming the workout. You're blaming that the deadlift is what caused, like that's one of the most common things we hear, I can't deadlift or I can't squat because it always triggers my lower back pain. That is not the problem at all. You know what's really interesting? Again, working with Phil and Nilesh inside Unity Gym for years and watching them treat clients that had lower back pain, that had muscle spasms, that had really bad lower back pain. And in their physio sessions, they got them squatting and deadlifting. And we were asking them, Yanni and I were asking them, why do you guys do that? And they said, because the reason why they're having lower back pain is because when they work out, their squat and their deadlift technique is poor and they're putting excessive load on their lower back. But the thing that they need more than anything to stop feeling these lower back pain and these muscle spasms is that they need to make that their whole body stronger, and the best exercises to do that for lower back pain are deadlifting and squatting. So isn't that interesting? That was something that Yanni and I found very interesting. It's it's old information for me now, so it's what we do with people all the time. But a lot of people are really surprised by that. The idea that deadlifting and squatting is the thing that you should be doing for your lower back pain. So if we go back to this analogy with the cup. Okay, so there's your load tolerance, and you go to the gym, you do that workout, you put too much load in, and bang, you get a muscle spasm. So you decide that you're going to avoid working out for a little while. Well, guess what happens to that cup when you do that? the size of the cup gets smaller as you get weaker. So now you can handle less. So now it takes less load to trigger that same muscle spasm. And guess what? The cycle continues and it gets worse and worse and worse. But the good news is that when you work out and you do it the right way, the size of the cup increases. And so when I got out of the army, the size of my cup would have probably been this big. You know, it didn't take a lot for me to go to the gym and trigger a muscle spasm. But because I've been working out the right way and the way that increases my cup is now the size of a bucket. And so what it would take to fill that cup before, when I put it in my now bucket, it barely fills it up this much. And that's the best analogy that I've heard about load tolerance, because I can handle so much more now than what I did before. And if I had have avoided working out and strength training and making myself stronger like I would have thought to in the past, then over time my cup would have gotten smaller. So it is very, very important that you continue to work out, but you have to work out the right way. And I'm going to tell you how to do that in just a minute. I'm also going to talk about diet and inflammation, but I'm first going to answer some questions. So we've got a bunch of questions here. Ashish is saying, when I work out, I don't have any pain, but my shoulder shivers even with light weight. Is that a stability issue or strength? And what is the best stability exercise? There is no best stability exercise, Ashish. I talk about this all the time. There is a process that if you follow, your shoulder will become stable and strong. But the exercise, see, I'm going to go back to this cup. The best stability exercise for me, for my shoulder, when my cup is like a bucket, would annihilate the person that has a cup like this. It would destroy them. If I put the person who has a compromised shoulder and their load tolerance is as big as that cup through any of the shoulder workouts that I do, they would be seeing a physical therapist in excruciating pain, and they'd probably be cursing me. And on the flip side, if I took the stability exercises for the shoulder that are right for that person with that little cup, it wouldn't do anything for me. It's not enough. It wouldn't challenge me. So there is no best exercise. There's the exercise that's best for you right now. And if you're training the right way, then those exercise selections will change pretty quickly. They progressively change as you develop with your training. And that's why the idea of going onto YouTube, and I'm sorry to say this, I know this is not what you want to hear. I know that you guys want to hear, you know, the silver spoon, you know, get spoon fed, the magic bullet. This is I'm using the worst analogies here, aren't I? Being spoon fed the silver bullet. You know what I mean? The silver bullet exercise. Like, this is the exercise. It's going to fix everything, and it doesn't work like that. There isn't one exercise that fixes any issues. There's training that takes your cup from here to here, and then there's a new set of exercises that takes your cup from here to here, and then there's a new set of exercises and a new amount of load, a new intensity and volume combination that will take your cup to here, and so on and so forth. So, you know, I can't tell you, man. There's exercises and the reason why I can't tell you is because I have no idea what your load tolerance is. I've got no idea. I only know that you're somebody that comments on my YouTube videos that repeatedly talks about the pain that you're suffering with in your shoulder. So I can only, you know, sort of extract from that you're inexperienced, that you don't know the best way to train, that you haven't been able to create the success that you want in yourself, and that you have some form of shoulder injury. That's the only thing I can really get from what I'm getting from your comments. But I need so much more than that. I need to be able to look at the way that you move. So I need to give you a set of exercises, watch you perform them. And this is how we do it all with our online coaching. People film themselves, they submit their videos to me, and then I review them and I say, okay, we need to do this exercise this way. You need to, you know, control your scapula like this. You need to change the weight you're doing. You need to pull the weight from here. You need to set up the bench this way, so that they get the understanding of how to do it correctly, and that process continues. And in some cases, I'll look at people and I say, this exercise is too much for you. We need to do this exercise. But I just can't say to you, this is the exercise that you need to do. I'm so sorry. It just doesn't work that way. But what you're dealing with is definitely a lack of strength and a lack of stability in that shoulder. And so the process is You need to strengthen the scapular stabilizers so that your scapula is moving efficiently and you don't have inefficient movement. You need to strengthen the rotator cuff so that the head of the humerus is held in the glenohumeral joint correctly when it moves around so you don't get joint glide, which causes a lot of pain. And you need to strengthen the prime movers all around that and hypertrophy them, like build muscle and get as strong as you can so that your shoulder is robust and you don't feel shoulder pain. And there's a really good process that you can follow to do that. But I can't tell you it's this exercise. Unstoppable Tiger Telucan is saying, I got golfer's elbow because I was too impatient with trying to get my first pull-up. Just about every Aussie in the online fitness space says strength is the cure to everything, and I have to ask why. You know what's funny? I don't actually follow really any other fitness professionals, so I don't really see what other fitness professionals are saying. I just don't get much out of other people's content, and I've only got so much time to watch stuff. But clarify on what you mean, what they're saying, that strength is the cure to everything. Because there is a caveat to that, which I talk about a lot. Strength without flexibility on the extreme ends of the spectrum is just as problematic as flexibility without strength. You can see, you know, I know firsthand people that are some of the strongest people in the world and they've got huge muscle mass on them, but they can't sit in an ass to grass squat. Like they can squat double their own body weight, even triple their own body weight, but they can't just sit down in a squat and sit there, you know, and use it as a rest position. It causes them too much pain. They can't touch their toes. They can't, you know, they can't sit cross-legged. They can't lift their arms up overhead into full shoulder flexion. That's problematic. That is, you know, as long as you stay within your realm of just doing strength training, of just doing squatting and deadlifting and shoulder pressing and pull-ups and whatever, then you'll be fine. But as soon as you try to, I remember this one guy, man, I'll never forget this. There was a trainer at our gym, a personal trainer, and he was your classic roided up, you know, muscle head. He was, you know, really massive, really roided up. And he was, he would have been in his mid-30s, and one day he had a back and forth with my brother, and they were talking about, Yanni was, you know, basically calling him out, saying, look, man, you know, I can see you're big and you can, because he always talked about how much you can squat and how much you can bench and all this and blah, blah, blah. And Yanni said, yeah, you know, I bet you're strong, but you know, I doubt you could do much outside of your strength training. And he was like, oh, that's bullshit. And he said, mate, I bet you that if you went and ran and tried to do a game, because he talked about how he used to play soccer. He was an English guy. And Yanni said to him, I bet if you played a game of soccer that you would be, you know, you would get injured and you'd be in all sorts. And he was like, oh, bullshit. And so he went and played a game of indoor soccer for the first time in however many years. And I'll never forget this because he had a video of it. He had a guy that filmed him, and he was on the court, on the indoor soccer court, field, whatever you call it. And the first time he got the ball and he went for a run for it, he sprinted and he ran about 10 steps and dropped to the ground, and he tore both his ACLs, both his anterior cruciate ligaments, just from running forward. He didn't get impacted. He didn't do lateral movement or anything. And he came into the gym on Monday or whenever it was, a week later, with leg braces from his ankle to his hip on both legs and walking on crutches. It couldn't be it was tragic. I'm not sitting here laughing at him. It was a horrible thing for him, but it couldn't be a better indication of what I'm saying, of this idea of specialization, that, you know, strength, weights, what that does for you. And then I've seen just as maybe not as severe cases, but I've seen just as much of a need for strength training on the polar opposite. And it's almost always from people that have dedicated themselves to yoga. I've never witnessed personally, this is just a personal experience of mine in Unity Gym, I've never witnessed a group of people who are more passionate about what they do, who are weaker than people who have dedicated themselves to yoga for 5, 8, 10 years. And I've had so many people come into Unity Gym because they were, you know, really into their yoga, but they just haven't been able to unlock these more advanced asanas that they're trying to do. And so they wanted to, they actually always came into Unity Gym because they wanted to get more flexible, and they saw that we did flexibility training. But not one of them was lacking flexibility. It was strength that they were lacking. And, you know, these are people that could bend themselves in half, but they just had such a small amount of muscle mass on them that it looked like a strong wind would blow them over. And you get them to try and squat with any kind of weight on their back, and they just can't do it. They just cannot. Like, they can go down into a full squat and just sit there and do, you know, and look like they're just praying in this squat position, you know, and just sit there and move around. But put any weight on them, and they can't even get past, you know, thighs being parallel on the ground without like wobbling and shaking or anything like that. They can't do pull-ups or, you know, any sort of standard, you know, feats of strength. And so, you know, what you've said there, that everybody's saying that strength is the cure to everything. It is and it isn't. Strength is the cure to lack of movement capability. Like, I'll put it to you this way. I'll rephrase it. Lack of muscle mass is catastrophic in the body. When you start to lose muscle mass, you go through major problems. And you don't feel this stuff until you're really into your 50s and 60s. So you'll start feeling the early parts of it in your 40s and 50s, where you'll start, you know, like it's like these muscle spasms and things. And that's coming, as I've said, most likely from a lack of strength, a lack of the body's ability to function properly. But you know, you can still get on with your life. Like, you deal with the muscle spasm, you go to the physio, whatever, you pop some pills, and you can still get on with life. But it's not until you're in later life that you start developing things like osteoporosis and your hormones start getting out of whack. You start putting on fat because you don't have enough muscle mass to, you know, deal with glycogen from sugar and carbohydrates and things like that. So there's this whole cascade of things that goes on. And the cure for all of that is resistance training. So yes, you know, strength training is, I won't say it's the cure for everything, but it is a massive part of it. Anyway, I'll go through and answer a couple more questions here before I continue with what I've got to talk about. Ashish is saying, is doing wall angels every day good? If yes, can you tell what are the benefits? Yes, doing wall angels are very good. It's great for strengthening scapular stabilizers and great for developing flexibility and opening up your chest so that you can get more range of motion. They're a great exercise to do. Ananda Kupraj is saying, middle split not achieved at age 48. Any special practice for middle splits, please? Yes, I've got a video on my page. Go to my YouTube page, type in middle splits. There's a 15-minute middle splits routine for beginners that you can start with. So give it a try. Max is saying, greetings from Marrakesh City. Greetings, Max. And Unstoppable Tiber Talikan is saying, that is true. Sorry, not sure what I was saying when you said that. Anuj is saying, given how intense life as a working parent can be, how do you know when you're close to capacity before starting your workout? That's a really good question on that I'll help you with. And Panther Black is has donated $5 to my channel again. Thank you so much. He said, love the content. I'll answer your question in a minute, brother. So just let me answer Ashish's question. How do you know when you're close to capacity before starting your workout? Unfortunately, through trial and error. So through getting it wrong is how you'll know when you're close. So if you, like, the signs that you need to look for is, if you're stressed and you feel flustered, that's a sign that you're close to capacity. And you want to take any workout where you don't feel, you want to recognize the days when you feel good and you feel like, yeah, I'm ready for this, to the days where you don't feel good. And there's actually, there's this test you can do. It's called the, I can't remember what it's called. It basically, the heart rate variability test. And you can actually, there's apps on your phones that you can use for this. If you've got a modern smartphone, or if you've got one of those rings or those wearables, you can definitely do it with that, where you can test your heart rate variability. And the heart rate variability is a really, it's the best objective way to tell how prepared you are for a workout. So if you start measuring your heart rate variability daily, that will tell you And there's a good, like the most cost-effective way that I've found. And again, I'm getting this from a friend of mine who has a PhD in metabolic research, I think it was. And he reads 20 peer-reviewed papers a week, and he's been doing that for 15 years. He's without a doubt the most knowledgeable and knowledgeable person on up-to-date peer-reviewed research that I know. And he's a friend of mine, so I can call him or send him an email whenever I've got a question and I want to clarify what's going on. I don't enjoy reading 20 peer-reviewed research papers a week, and I'm not a scientist. I don't have a PhD, so I can't even decipher them the way that somebody like he can. So when I've got a question where I want to know what the most up-to-date research is, I just reach out to him and he gives me the answer. Anyway, when I was talking to him about this, he said the most accurate low barrier of entry, meaning cost-effective entry way to measure your heart rate variability, is an app called HRV4U. I think it's called. So it's HRV and then the number 4 and then U. And you have to pay for it. It was like $16, but it was a one-time payment. And then you use the flash on your phone. If you've got a smartphone, it actually uses the flash, and you put your thumb on it and it measures your heart rate variability. And otherwise, you can get, if you've got the finances or you've got one, a lot of the good wearables, if you get a Fitbit or whatever, get one that measures heart rate variability. That's the best way that you can tell whether you're ready for a good workout or not. And if you don't have that and you're not going to do that, then basically any day where you feel really tired, where you feel any kind of extra stiffness that you normally wouldn't feel, those are the days where you want to warm up a little bit more than what you normally would, and where you want to pay very, very close attention to how much you're lifting, and potentially not lift 100%, not lift the full amount of weight that you normally would have lift a lighter weight or less volume in that workout. And unfortunately, Anuj, it does take time. It does take it does take practice to be able to know when your body is capable of doing a good workout and when it's not. But I do want to move on to something that I'm going to talk about in a second, which is diet and sleep and how this affects muscle spasms. So I'll just answer a couple more questions first. Elysium is saying, opinion about lower back extension and Zercher deadlifts. I don't do Zercher deadlifts at all. But I don't really have an opinion on them because I haven't read any reasons as to why people would do them versus whether they wouldn't do them. I just haven't found a need to do them. I get everything that I need from deadlifting, from doing a conventional grip deadlift, a wide grip deadlift, and a snatch grip deadlift. I just don't, and I do Jefferson curls. So Jefferson curls gives me loaded flexion in my spine. And I really like those because they develop incredible flexibility through the whole posterior chain and strength. And I've just never really, I've never looked to the reason as to why I would include a Zercher deadlift in my programming. So I have to say I don't have an opinion on it. Back extensions are great. A back extension is a great supplementary exercise to do for a deadlift workout. If you've got lower back pain, I should actually say there's some really good exercises that you can do if you've got a weak core, weak lower back, weak glutes, weak lumbar extensors, and you have muscle spasms. There's a couple of really good sets of exercises that you can do with the back extension. So you start with isometric holds. So when you're having spasms like this and they're so severe that you can't really do anything, like anything that you do seems to, trigger pain, you actually start with isometrics first. So start by doing isometric holds because isometric contractions cause the least problems from it, through your body. And so when you go into a back extension on a 45-degree back extension and you do an isometric hold, and you'll start with maybe 15 seconds per set, and you do 3 sets, and you work up to being able to do 75 seconds per set. For most of the time, for most exercises, doing an isometric contraction more than 75 seconds means that you're strong enough that you should be increasing the intensity, not trying to do more hold time. So once you can get up to, about a minute, 75 seconds max for 3 sets, then you can lower the back extension from you could have maybe even started on a 60 degree. A 60 degree angle will be less intense, and then a 45 degree angle will be more intense, and then a 30 degree angle will be even more intense. And then once you can do that, go back to the 60 degree angle and do it with 1 foot. So you start doing, unilateral isometric holds, and you'll do the same workout. You'll work out really quickly which side is stronger than the other, because one side you'll be able to hold for longer than the other, and you always choose how long you're going to hold for by doing the weak side. So you do the weak side. Maybe you only get 20 seconds on the weak side, but you can do 40 seconds on the strong side. You only do 20 seconds on both sides. So it'll feel like the strong side barely got a workout and the weak side will be getting its ass kicked. But that's how structural imbalances from left to right side work themselves out. Never choose how much weight or how much time you're going to hold for by training the strong side and then trying to make the weak side catch up. You don't do it that way. You do it the other way around, and the imbalance will work itself out pretty quickly. And then you can go from that to doing back extensions. And that if you had muscle spasms that were preventing you from doing the majority of your training in the gym, that could be an entire workout. Just going to the gym and just doing isometric holds on the back extension. It's a really, really good thing for people who are suffering bad lower back pain. And I'm going right through a whole, again, this goes back to what Ashish's question is: what's the best exercise? There is no best exercise. That exercise is without a doubt one of the best exercises to do. If you couldn't do squats or deadlifts because it was triggering pain, but you could do more than just, sitting around doing nothing. If you couldn't even do that, if you couldn't even do the back extensions, then what you can do is you can lay down on the ground, rest your hands on your head, and you can just raise one leg off the ground and hold it for 5 seconds and then relax, and then raise one leg off the ground. Like, that's an even reduced level of intensity from using the back extensions. And can you guys sort of start to get this idea of there is no, one exercise that's the best for everybody? There's the exercises that are best based on where you're at and what you can handle. For somebody that can do, single leg holds on the back extension, or that doesn't have a back extension available, supine hip thrust on the ground is a really good option. So laying on the ground and doing supine hip thrusts. And if you can do supine hip thrusts with a little bit of weight on your hips, then you can do single leg hip thrusts. If you can't do supine hip thrusts, but you can still get down there, you can do an isometric hold, a glute bridge, where you basically push up into a supine hip thrust and you just hold it. And if you can do that for 60 seconds and it's not causing you pain, then you can do a single leg glute bridge, where you're holding up. Like, there's all these different ways that we, as a coach, there's all these different exercises that we prescribe, and they're not random. They're chosen because of if you know what you're doing as a coach, they're chosen because they are the right exercise for this person at this time. And if you can do hip thrusts and you can do single leg hip thrusts and that's not causing you problems, but deadlifts are causing you problems, then you'll do a hang deadlift where you do a reduced range of motion, where when you go down with the deadlift, the bar for the deadlift only goes just past the knee, and then you stand back up. If you remember, Anuj, we were doing that for a while because you were really afraid of doing deadlifts, so we were doing hang deadlifts. Anuj, you've said also interested in back extension as a supplementary exercises to squats and deadlifts. They're an incredible exercise, back extensions. They're really, really good. But you train at home, which would mean that you'd need to get yourself a back extension piece of equipment. If you want to get that, man, if you want to invest in that, and then you want me to add that into your program, Anuj is one of our Unity Gym UMS tribe members, then I will absolutely do that, because they are a really, really good exercise for lower back pain and lower back problems. So Panther Black, sorry, man, I've finally gotten to your question here. Love the content. As an avid lifter, as I've aged, if you're strength training through a full range of motion, why does one lose mobility, flexibility? So it's a case of use it or lose it. And I would argue that you're not strength training through full range of motion. If you're, this is something that's really important to understand. If you're training 95% of your full range, so if your shoulder flexion capability is to get to there, but when you shoulder press, you go to there, it looks like you're going full range, but you're not. And you will lose flexibility over time with that. And so it's not just about the strength training at full range of motion. It's also about doing full range of motion mobility. So you know the UMS warm-up that we do. The UMS warm-up is intended to be a full range of motion, full mobility warm-up. And then that's what our 20-minute mobility routines are for. So we've got, the one that we offer with the Flexibility Masterclass is the stage 1 20-minute mobility routine. Within the UMS coaching app, we have 3 stages of mobility routines, and they're designed for people that are on different stages of the journey. So they're designed for somebody that's really inflexible, that can barely squat down to the ground and, hold the position. And then for somebody if I go to the stage 3 person, somebody like me, somebody who can do, the splits and back bridges and stuff like that to be able to maintain that level of mobility. And then the stage 2 one is for the person that's halfway between those two things. And so it's a combination of doing full range of motion strength training, yes, but it's also a combination of doing daily mobility and maintaining what you've got. So accessing those full ranges, actively. That's what mobility training is. It's actively accessing your full range of motion, not passively, not being just pushed into the position by an external force, but actively pulling yourself into that position. And then you've said after there, maybe what you think is full range of motion isn't. It's quite possible. Brezel is saying, hi, are you training anyone with a slipped disc? Any success? Happened to my brother recently. When I've spoken to physiotherapists about that, there actually isn't anything as a slipped disc. A slipped disc is a term that those of us who aren't physical therapists and chiropractors use. It is not a term that a chiropractor or a physical therapist use, from what I remember being told by Phil. I remember whenever we used to say, oh, this person's got a slipped disc, he used to laugh and he'd say, discs don't slip. There is no such thing as a slipped disc. He's most likely got a herniated disc or a bulging disc. So can you train? Absolutely. Yeah. Do I have any success? I'll tell you a couple of success stories that I've had. I have 2 people that I can remember, but we've had a lot more than this, but 2 people that have stood out in my mind that came to Unity Gym with either herniated or bulging discs. Actually, 3 that I can remember. All men, all in their, one of them was in their 30s, the other 2 were in their 40s. 2 of them were parents. And when they came into the gym and they were asking about training and they looked at the setup that we had, which was all free weights, it was barbells, dumbbells, squat racks, pull-up bars, ropes, kettlebells, benches. We had no machines. And they said, I don't think I can train in a gym like this. And I said, why not? And they said, I've got really bad back problems. And every time I deadlift or squat, it's, it just throws my back out. And I convinced them that this was going to be the best thing for them, that they shouldn't avoid it. And I'll never forget this. I'll never forget one of our members, Nick, when I first took him through a deadlift workout. So, I used to teach the morning classes at the gym, and every Friday we did deadlifting. The Friday was our deadlift day. And, I explained to him how we were doing the deadlift, and I took him through the technique, and he just looked at me and he said, man, I can't deadlift. It's just going to throw my back out. And I said, okay, that's no problem. We're going to, we'll just do an unloaded bar. So you'll just do just a barbell, 20 kilos, 44 pounds. And he said, man, I can't do that. That's going to throw my back out. I said, okay, man, that's okay. We'll just start with like, a 2 or a 4 kilo weight, which is like 4 or 8 pounds. And he still said, man, I still think that's going to throw my back out. So I got him to start with a broomstick. So no weight. Like this must have been a couple of 100 grams. And I showed him the technique for the deadlift. And he was working on the movement. And then from there, we went to doing the same thing with like a 5 kilo dumbbell, then eventually a 10 kilo dumbbell, and then whatever it was. And the process just happened. He was just turning up to training, and he was in a group training format. So he wasn't training with me in a one-on-one setting. He was training in a class with 20, 25 people, something like that. So, when you're training in a class like that, you only get a very small amount of time with the coach. It's not like I'm sitting there and dedicating, a whole training session to him. And I'll never forget this. I can still see it so clearly in my mind now. I remember one day when we were deadlifting and I saw him finish his last rep, and then that he went to change the weight for the next set. And I looked over and I said, how much are you deadlifting, Nick? And he goes, 130 kilos. And we were doing sets of 5 in this mesocycle, in this program phase. I said, how much do you weigh? And he goes, about 75, 80 kilos. And I went, wow. So that's like, That's well over 150% your own body weight. And he laughed and went, yeah. I said, how long have you been here for? And he goes, oh, 8 months now. And I said, wow. And when you came in, you were too afraid to deadlift because of your bulging disc, weren't you? And he went, yeah, yeah. And he wasn't really looking at it like it was that big a deal. But you imagine that in 8 months, a man that was so afraid to pick up any weight was now deadlifting 1.5 times his own body weight and was completely pain-free. So that's one example. Another example was Adrian, where when Adrian came in, he would have been older. He would have been in his mid-40s. He had 3 kids. And he looked at the gym and he looked at the setup and he said, oh man, I don't think this is the place for me. And I asked him why, and he said, I stuffed my back deadlifting back in my 20s. It's never been the same again. And however many months later, not only was he deadlifting his own body weight, but he actually became one of the only people that was truly capable in Unity Gym of doing Olympic lifting and getting up to doing a clean and jerk of his own body weight. And that's not impressive by anyone's standards who goes to a CrossFit gym or whatever. But somebody who was by this time he was in his late 40s, who was so afraid to deadlift because of a back injury that he did in his 20s, to now doing clean and jerks of his own body weight is a huge, huge, huge feat. And the reason why I say he was one of the only people that qualified to do Olympic lifting, we didn't let anybody do Olympic lifting at Unity Gym. You had to prove that you had the flexibility and the strength to be able to do it, because one of the biggest problems with Olympic lifting is that people do it when they don't have the flexibility for it. And Olympic lifting is one of those things where you absolutely need the combination of strength and flexibility. If you're strong but you don't have the flexibility, man, you are a ticking time bomb. And you're doing Olympic lifting at a CrossFit gym, you are guaranteed you are heading for a traumatic shoulder injury. So do I have success with it? Absolutely. And since then, I have coached hundreds of people around the world who have herniated, slipped discs to pain-free life. Unstoppable Tiger Talukan is saying, example, lack of balance, can't kick higher, can't run long enough, pain in honestly, just insert a type of pain. You practically told me the same thing last stream about my ankles, which are better-ish. Well, that's good. That's good. Look, man, this is the thing. Look, I talked about this yesterday. I talked about this concept that, your body is a system, and the system starts to break down when you're not working to make it stronger. That's the fact of life. We are designed. If you look at every other animal on this planet, we are the only animal that has adapted to doing 2/5 of fuck all in our entire existence. We are the only animal that's adapted to that. Every other animal runs around or spends its time grazing or flies through the air or, it has to run to catch its food or whatever it is. We are the only animal that if we choose to, we can go through our entire life with barely doing anything but getting up out of bed and walking down to the desk and sitting down all day on our computer. And we can make all the money we need and eat all the food we need by living a life like that. But life doesn't thrive like that. Life thrives from movement. And we are no exception to any other animal on the planet. We thrive from movement. And so, I go back to like what I said earlier on. You're either living the life where you're strength training and you're working towards being pain-free and towards building muscle and towards, having a strong, robust body, or you're living a life where you're not doing strength and flexibility training and you're moving towards a life where you are weaker, where you have less muscle mass and where you have more pain, and that just gets worse and worse and worse. And my career is filled with having these conversations with people face to face or with people, via our online coaching, where I'm trying to get people to understand that the reason why they're experiencing this systematic, breakdown in their body where, as soon as one injury is fixed, there's another one that comes. It is not because of what you're doing right now. Like one of the biggest mistakes people make, and it's really upsetting for me. I really have to bite my tongue when I hear this and try to find a way to deliver this information in a way that doesn't upset people. People are like, oh, I can't do, weightlifting because I keep getting injured. It's not the fucking weightlifting that's injuring you. It's the 20 years of not doing weightlifting that has injured you. That's what the problem is. It's the life that was led to this point before you finally decided, I'm going to do something about this. That's what created the environment that now this system is breaking down. And then, of course, people struggle. They really struggle to say, but it was when I was bench pressing that I did this injury. So that's what caused the problem. Yes, you're right. Doing too much weight or doing the bench press with incorrect technique is what caused the slap tear. Yes, you're right. That was the thing that caused it, but it's not the bench press that's the problem. The problem is that you weren't strong enough for doing the amount that you were doing on the bench press there, and you didn't start bench pressing with correct guidance, with somebody that could guide you and safely say, no, we're not going to lift that much weight yet. We're going to really dial in the technique, and we're going to really slowly use progressive overload, and we're going to build muscle mass at a slow, steady, consistent pace. And it sucks that that's how it happens, right? I mean, it sucks that you can't just say, you know what, I'm going to, fix my body up and I'm going to go to the gym now and, in 3 months I'm going to be better. It just doesn't happen that way. You're undoing, decades of abuse to the body. That's what it is. It's abuse to the body. And I remember one of the most poignant things that was ever said to me, this is when I'd just gotten out of the army. So I would have been 35. Maybe 36, 2 years after getting out of the army, like at the height of my back problems. And my brother and I, Yanni, we went and did a workshop with a world-renowned strength and conditioning coach named Ian King, who is the head strength and conditioning coach for the Australian Olympic team for 30 years. He was responsible for training athletes that got over 60 medals, over 30 gold medals, like one of the most accomplished strength and conditioning coaches in the world. And it was the first time that he'd trained anybody that wasn't an Olympic athlete in 18 years. We were fortunate enough to get a one-day workshop with him. And whenever he said, somebody come up here and, I'm going to look at you and we'll talk about blah, 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 I always put my hand up because I want that person to look at my body and go, this is what you need to do. And when I stood up and he got me, the first thing he did, whatever it was that we were doing, we were about to start doing Olympic lifting, because he said, what do you guys want to learn from me today? I don't have a plan for what I'm going to teach you. I just got roped in by Tony to come and do this for you. So what do you want to learn? And a bunch of us said, we want to learn Olympic lifting. And he said, all right, cool. Let me have a look at your postures. So I jumped up and he looked at me and he looked at me and he stood side on and he went, what surgery have you had? And I said, I haven't had surgery. And he goes, what surgery are you going to have? And I said, what do you mean? And he said, well, mate, with a posture like that, with the lordosis that you've got, if you start doing Olympic weightlifting, you're going to have surgery because you'll stuff yourself. And I said, oh my God. And, he looked at my lower back and my posture. And one of the things that he said was he told me all these things that I have to do. This is where I learned, how much I needed to stretch my hip flexors to fix my lower back pain, which I'll talk about in a minute. I learned about that. I learned about the muscles that I needed to strengthen and everything. And then I said, after he told me everything that I had to do, I said, how long is it going to take to fix? And he said, probably about 10 years. And I said, what? And he said, well, how long did it take you to get that issue? And I said, I don't know. And he said, yeah, it's probably developed over the last 10 years. It's something that's happened from X, Y, and Z. And he said, if it took you 10 years to get it, it's going to take you 10 years to get rid of it. And that was an incredibly disheartening thing to hear for me. And I mulled on that for years. I told myself, that's bullshit. It's not going to take me 10 years to fix this. And it didn't take me 10 years to get pain-free. I got pain-free much quicker than that. But to get to I still have lordosis in my lower back 10 years later. It's still not 100%. So 10 years later, I'm sitting here going, it's improved so much from where it was 10 years ago, but it's not 100%. So now 10 years later, I'm thinking, maybe he was right. And so I know I don't want to dishearten you guys by saying that, but what I do want to say is, what you've got to understand is that if you've got these issues that have taken so long to fix, so long to occur in your body. These are things that occur from a lifetime or from decades of not doing strength training or of doing the wrong kind of strength training where you're not doing structural balance training. Then it does take time to fix. And you've just got to strap yourself in for the process and you've got to train in a way that is going to fix it. So Anuj is saying, wish I could deadlift 1.5 times body weight in 8 months. Been at it almost 10 months and still at 20 kilograms. I'm probably older and have a worse injury, but at least I'm mostly pain-free. That's the point, man. You are. And you've got to look at it that way. You've got to look at it in the way where you are... TikTok's making me drag a puzzle into place to prove that I'm not a robot. Everybody's different. And you can't compare yourself to anybody. He is absolutely younger than you. He doesn't have children, and he had more muscle mass than you have starting. He was used to working out already, and he was a professional athlete in his 20s as well. So you can't compare yourself to anybody. We're all running our own race. Brezel's saying herniated disc. That's right. Good to hear. There's hope for him. Thanks for this Q&A. Is a great resource, by the way. You're absolutely welcome. Elysium saying, I was in your coaching to amazing stuff, saved my shoulder. Oh, that's so cool. I'm so happy. Unstoppable Tiger Talukan. That's why I asked about the teacher. I do wrestling and BJJ again. And I did Zercher deadlifts. Amazing exercise. Awesome. Jay is saying, I had sciatica in my right side of my lower back in the past and managed to get my strength back by continuing to train. Pain is pretty much gone. However, I feel like it still affects the way I walk. Yeah. Man, look, sciatica is a horrible thing, but if you've fixed it with training, then that's great. Start challenging yourself with new types of mobility training, okay? And Jay's saying, and train, what can I do to correct the issue? I've been running for like 10 to 20 minutes straight recently on the treadmill, but feel the need to hold onto the treadmill as I can't run straight because I become off balance. Brezel's saying, that's awesome that you met Ian King. He's a real innovator. Do you know who Ian King is? Not a lot of people know who he is. Man, he is a massive innovator. One of the only other people that I've ever heard even mention the name Ian King, and I was really interested to hear this, was Ido Portal. When I was working with Ido Portal, who is somebody who I have a immense amount of respect for, and he's been one of the greatest influences on me in the past decade, working with him face to face a couple of times. And when I was doing a workshop with him, he threw out a few names, and one of the names that he threw out was Ian King. And I went up to him when we had a break and I asked him, I said, have you ever worked with Ian King before? And he said, no, but I've read most of his books and, you know, he's a real innovator and blah, blah, blah. And I told him that I've worked with him and he was really interested to hear it. And yeah, it is absolutely awesome. I would dare say that because we were in a group of, I think there was 8 personal trainers. I think I'm like literally one of 8 people in the last 25 years that isn't a professional athlete that's worked with Ian King. Because I'm pretty sure that if he's not retired right now, he'd be close to it. Because 10 years ago, he was in his late 70s when I worked with him. So he'd be very old now. Man, that guy, he was the most no bullshit person I have ever met. Actually, Ido Portal was up there. But man, that dude, he just cut you down. He like if you spoke bullshit or if you said something, he just cut you down and just said, "No, that's bullshit." Blah blah blah. It was, you know what he used to say to us. What he used to say. I mean, I did this workshop with him. So what he said to us so many times he said this. People would talk about the research. And they would say, oh, but the research, this and that. And he'd said, have you used that research to create the result in yourself? And they'd go, no. And he'd say, have you used that research to create results in your clients repeatedly? Have you been able to repeat the result multiple times? And they'd say, no. And he'd say, then don't fucking tell me about the research. I don't give a shit about it. And it was so interesting to hear somebody of his caliber that was speaking that way. And you want to know what's really funny? What's really funny is the more accomplished the coaches that you work with are, the more they kind of say, research, whatever. Because when you learn more and more about research, there is so much that goes into ever being able to say, well, the research says this, so that means that that's what everybody should do. So anyway, that's just a little bit of a side note there. I'm getting asked here, I can do now at lower back extension 120 pounds. My back became like steel, stronger than ever, and that after an injury, Zercher deadlifts now are the next step. Yeah, sure, if they're working for you. Look, it's not just about the back. I'll talk a little bit more. And then you're saying, Rad, is it better to do higher frequency, low volume or lower high intensity training? That is not a simple answer. If you are earlier on in a muscle spasm or earlier on in your training age, if you don't have as much experience or as much strength, then higher volume, lower intensity is better. But if you're somebody that's more experienced, then you want to undulate between higher intensity and higher volume. So I do mesocycles, which is a program phase of 4 weeks, where I will do high intensity, where I'll do 5, 4, 3, or 2, or even 1 rep per set. And then I'll do mesocycles where I'll do 8 reps per set. So this is what program periodization is. It's not just do the one thing and do it forever. I should say this quickly because I did say that I was going to talk about this in this live stream, and I haven't yet, before I answer more questions. So something else is talking about, what else can you do when you've got muscle spasms? I need to talk about nutrition here. Nutrition is a really, really big part about this. I've got a friend, again, one of my incredible sports physical therapist friends, who has a PhD, and his PhD, his entire PhD, was the link between gut health and lower back pain. That's what he did his PhD on. And he proved that gut health is directly linked to lower back pain. So gut health is a whole nother topic. And if I've done live streams on this again, but it is a big enough topic that if you guys want me to do it again, put it in the comments, and I can potentially do another episode on gut health. But gut health is something that my brother Yanni and I have been actively working on improving for the last, I'd say, 15 years. Because the first time that I learned about gut health, I would have been in my late 20s. It was when I was an amateur personal trainer. I became a personal trainer when I was 26, I think, so 20 years ago. So I'd been doing it for a couple of years, and I went to a workshop, a Czech workshop from Paul Chek, the holistic lifestyle coach, and I started to learn about gut health. It's the first time I'd ever learned about gut health. Never understood what it was before. And what I'd learned is that I had abused my gut so badly through my 20s and through my teen years that I was a prime candidate for bad gut health, and that I had all the symptoms of somebody that has poor gut health. So what do I mean by I had abused it? Drugs, alcohol, fast food, food with lots of trans fatty acids in it, lots of sugar and refined carbohydrates, just shit, just, bombs in my gut. And I just had really, really, really poor gut health, and I was suffering bad inflammation. My gut was really bulging out, and I always felt really bloated and full, and I had really bad back pain. And so I started on this journey of learning about how to fix my gut health, and it involves a lot of fixing your gut health is actually a lot of, it's removing a lot of things that are causing problems. And in a real nutshell, if you really want to fix lower back pain and you want to stop getting muscle spasms, stop drinking alcohol, stop eating fast food, stop eating a lot of trans fatty acids. So trans fatty acids, it's when fat mutates through being cooked. So look into it. It's a whole nother topic, but it's basically when you cook with cheap vegetable oils. It's much better to cook with butter or extra virgin, cold pressed virgin olive oil if you want to cook with vegetable oil. Eat more plants and eat a variety of plants. Eat, what else am I looking for here? Trying to think of the basics of gut health, and eat a wide variety of foods. So like a more of a modified Mediterranean diet. Eat more like that. And when you stop drinking alcohol, when you stop eating fast foods, when you stop eating takeaway foods and sugar and biscuits and chips and things like that, and you replace it with vegetables, with meats, with fish, with chicken, small amounts of grains if you want to, then your gut will start to thrive and you'll start to notice a big difference. And what will happen is you'll reduce inflammation in the gut, which will have a massive impact on your lower back pain. And I cannot emphasize this enough, and I'm not going to go too deep into this because this is something that so many people need to address. So much of your health problems are going to be fixed when you address gut health. It's the one thing that so few people are willing to do because it's such a big deal. Because you have to look at you've got to look at the people that you spend your time with. The people that you spend your time with are affecting what you eat. And it means that if you have a spouse that isn't willing to come on this journey with you, then you've got to start preparing your own food. You've got to start going, all right, well, I'm going to eat this way. You can keep eating that way if you want, but I'm going to eat this way. I was having to do that with my wife for a little while. My wife's very healthy, but she's only recently come on board with some of the, more extreme things that I do for my nutrition in more recent years. And so I had to, there were certain things where I said, no, I'm not going to eat that, or I'm not going to drink that. And she would be, wanting to eat it or drink it. Anyway, so yeah, gut health is huge. Get on top of your gut health. In my experience, you can do everything that I'm doing, but if you're not taking care of your gut health, you're still going to get flare-ups and you're still going to get muscle spasms. It's still going to keep happening to you and going to keep occurring. And then something else that is really something else that is a big part of dealing with lower back pain is trigger point release. So I use foam rollers. I use a rumble roller that has the rumbles on it, and a trigger point release like a ball. I've got it right here, like a lacrosse ball. Those are really, really good. And so what you can do is they're actually really, really good to help with spasms. When you have a spasm, you put it right where the spasm is and all around the spasm, all around the area, and you just put pressure on it and just hold it for as long as you can, and that can really help with the muscle spasm. Elysium is saying, my name is Asterios. Of course I remember you, man. I remember you well. I remember working with you. Anuj is saying, doing back extension isometric holds for 2 minutes, 2 times per week right now by pinning a padded barbell to the squat rack. It's great. Film yourself doing it, man, so I can see it. 2 minutes is getting really long. I wouldn't do 2 minutes. If you can do 2 minutes, I'd start doing single leg isometric holds. So film yourself doing a single leg isometric hold, please. Anuj is saying, love the content today, really helpful. I'm really happy that it is helping you. And nutrition is very important. I studied biochemistry. It's the most important thing outside training to get a healthy gut for hormones and injuries. 100%. Jay is saying, I never would have thought gut health was linked to back pain, but as a female, we get lower back pain during our period, so it makes sense. Yeah. Man, gut health is linked to pain through the whole body. It really is. So I've talked about the lower back injuries that I've had. I've had slap tears in both shoulders, torn supraspinatus. I've got arthritis in one of my shoulders, or the early onset of arthritis. I've got a torn meniscus in my right knee. I've tore the Lisfranc ligament in my right foot, and many other things. They don't hurt at all. The only time they do hurt is when I bombard my gut, because you'll get inflammation from poor food pretty much instantaneously. So it's such a big topic, and I've read so much on it that I don't. It's hard for me to know where to start and what to talk about, because I've read so much about this and learned so much. So what happens is that when your gut health, when you have low inflammation in your gut, you have low inflammation through your whole body, chronic inflammation. So if I drink alcohol just bang sends up that inflammation. The next day after drinking alcohol, everything that doesn't hurt hurts now. So all of my neck hurts, my lower back feels tight, my shoulder, I'll reach up for the top cupboard and I'll get a dull pain in my shoulder from my slap tear that I haven't felt for months and months and months. It all comes when the inflammation in my gut increases. And because what happens is all the bacteria in your gut, from what I've read, is you can never actually completely wipe out a type of bacteria, and there's beneficial bacteria and there's non-beneficial bacteria that lives in us. You guys should check out a book called 10% Human. We're actually only 10% human. In this body here, if you take a chunk of all of my cells, only 10% of them are human, and the other 90% are bacteria. So we are basically an ecosystem of life. And only 10% of our cells are actually human cells. So so what happens is you've got all this bacteria that's living in your gut, and certain bacteria thrives on sugar, and it'll thrive on dextrose, and other bacteria will thrive on I can't remember all the names of all the different sugars. what are the other sugars called? Sucrose, and there's all those different types of sugar. So one bacteria will thrive on this, one will thrive on something else, one will thrive on trans fatty acids from canola oil or whatever it is. So what happens is that when you starve that bacteria, when you stop feeding it what it needs, it actually dies, because bacteria reproduces very, very quickly. So it basically multiplies and it grows, and it's constantly multiplying and it's constantly growing if you're feeding it the right foods. So again, certain bacteria will only thrive off certain foods. So when you stop feeding it the certain foods that it needs to thrive, it actually only takes about 3 or 4 days to almost eradicate it. You wipe it out, but it never completely dies. It'll always be sitting there waiting for the opportunity to explode again. And so it's all opportunistic. As soon as you put the wrong foods in your gut, bang, you get this explosion, you get this chronic inflammation response, and then you get lower back pain, which is why you can have no lower back pain. You didn't do anything, but you just ate, and you wouldn't have even been aware that you did this. You wouldn't have even been aware of it, because probably only now that you're hearing this information, you'll start to become aware of it. You'll have this flare up in your lower back, and you'll go, Jesus, what's this from? And then you'll think back to yesterday, and you'll think, oh man, we ate at that Thai restaurant. And I used to think, in my mind, oh, I'm going to get some takeaway, but I feel like something healthy. I'm going to go and get Thai food. And I'd go and get Thai food because you can watch them cooking with fresh vegetables and fresh meat right in front of you. But the problem is they're using the cheapest possible oil that you can get your hands on. The only way that any takeaway restaurant can make any money is to use the cheapest oil possible. They are not spending money on expensive oils. And so you're eating fresh vegetables that have been cooked in front of you, but you're eating it soaked in trans fatty acids. And so you're still having this major inflammatory response. And so, then back to gut health, there's this bacteria that is very beneficial for the body. There is bacteria that lives in our gut that is very, 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 very beneficial. It assists in reducing inflammation. It aids in digestion. A major part of digestion is actually bacteria, the bacteria that we have in our gut. And so when we don't have good bacteria, we don't have a good balance of the healthy bacteria in our guts, then we actually can't even access all of the nutrients from our food. The bacteria that's living in our gut is a big part of digestion. And so what happens is food ends up passing through your intestines without you even being able to get the nutrients out of it, which is why a lot of people become nutrient deficient. So, gut health is just so huge. There's recent research that is showing that gut health is directly linked to depression, anxiety, and most mental health disorders. And, we're probably still about another 5 or 10 years away before it becomes more common practice. But in the future, we are going to see that psychiatrists are going to, hopefully, this will get into the mainstream. They're going to be talking to people about gut health for dealing with their mental health disorders, because it has been proven that gut health is directly linked to hormonal imbalances, depression, anxiety, things like that. So if you suffer from lower back pain and you're not starting to at least work on your gut health, I dare say that you're going to continue the cycle. It's going to keep happening for you. And it's a really, really big topic, gut health. If you go back and look at my live streams, you can see I've got a couple of good live streams on gut health that you can go and watch. And, in a nutshell, improving your gut health is a progressive thing. It is not something that is going to happen like that. You don't go from shit gut health to good gut health in one step. It is something that you do bit by bit by bit by bit by bit. And so the best way that I've found is that you look at something that you can eliminate. Look at one thing. Look at the first domino that's going to start knocking down the other dominoes, and eliminate it, and don't touch it for 30 days. And once you get to 30 days, you'll have created a life where it is normal for you to not eat this food or drink that alcohol or whatever it is. And then find the next thing that you're going to eliminate. And every time you eliminate one thing, replace it with something else that is healthy for you. If you like drinking alcohol at nighttime, replace alcohol with a herbal tea, because then you're still getting to sip. You're still getting to have that habit, but you're having it from something that is that's good for you, not bad for you. All right, team, I got to run. My family is waking up now, believe it or not. I'm down. My office is downstairs, and my wife and son are asleep upstairs when I come down here and spend my time with you guys. So now I've got to go up and have some family time. So thanks for the great discussion. You guys, I had a lot of people on here. Seems like this is something that you guys wanted to know more about. So maybe I'll do some more live streams on lower back pain. I'll do some things on specific exercises, or I don't know. You guys let me know what you want me to talk about. I'm always, I come up with ideas for what I should talk about based on what you ask me. And remember, Anuj, for those of you who are tribe members of the UMS online coaching, I always answer your questions like these. Today's topic was from one of our tribe members who asked a question. And if you want that, if you want to get your programs written for you and get all this stuff done, then as I said, you've still got one more day where you can join our online coaching at an incredible 38% discount. If you go to unitygym.com/UMS-discount. You can get it, or you can click the link in the description of this podcast, but you've only got 24 hours left. And if you've made it this far and you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, please do so. It really, really, really helps. So if you haven't done it, just take 1 minute, just click that subscribe button and help me grow the algorithm. Jay is saying more on mobility workouts. Doing a back pain podcast again in March is probably a good idea, since people go too hard for New Year's and then end up with pain again. Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. Thanks so much for tuning in, everybody. I'll see you all tomorrow. Have a wonderful day.